We're going to start things off in Washington, where the president has just accepted the resignation of the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations, Nikki Haley. Rick Klein is at the White House with the latest. And Rick, this was a surprise.
A true shock in a town that seems to leak all over the place. This one held President Trump just appearing in the Oval Office alongside of Nikki Haley to say that Haley had told him maybe 6 months ago that she was looking to take a break at the end of the year after 6 intense years as governor and now 2 at the UN, and that she will be leaving her post at the end of the year. Of course, fevered speculation about what this could mean for her political future, what it could mean. You can see her fitting into a whole lot of different roles going forward. She seemed to tamp that down, talking about her honor in working alongside President Trump and her expectation that she will be campaigning for him in 2020.
And Rick, you know, at this press conference, I mean, they both gushed about each other. Haley even gushed about Ivanka and Jared, you know, President Trump's family. So it doesn't seem like there was any negativity in the relationship. She said she's not planning to run in 2020. She's planning to support the president, and sort of alluded to the fact she doesn't intend to be governor again. So why step down?
Well, if you believe her account, it is simply that it's time to take a break. She says she believes in term limits, and it has been a long, extended period of time. She just finished an intense session at the UN General Assembly last week. It is curious timing, just 4 weeks before the midterms, to have anything that rocks the boat like this. You can speculate beyond that, given the president's issues with appealing to women voters, to lose one of the most prominent women in his administration, one of the fiercest advocates of his policies, someone who has been a very loyal soldier after supporting a different candidate during the primaries. She was a Marco Rubio supporter. But it is striking in terms of the timing. But we're going to, I'm sure, learn a lot more in the coming hours and days. But as of now, the information out there is that she simply thought it was time to go and felt like this was the right moment to announce that she'll be stepping away from this job at the end of the year.
How does this impact, you know, negotiations ongoing with Iran and North Korea, some of those countries where our diplomatic relations are crucial?
Well, one interesting wrinkle in all of this is that she has seen her profile diminish somewhat with Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's ascendancy as someone that's got President Trump's ear, as well as the National Security Advisor John Bolton. The president more comfortable with his foreign policy and national security team than he appeared to be earlier in his administration. There's no doubt, though, that Nikki Haley was a key player on the world stage, and whoever it is that's tapped to fill that role is going to have some very big shoes to fill as someone who was able to forcefully advocate for the Trump position. In some cases, even mildly breaking with President Trump. She was a little more forceful than the president in calling out human rights abuses, for instance, and standing up to Russia, to cite another high-profile example. But I do think that the other negotiations have other leads that are part of them. We'll have to see how the adjustments are made, because this is a time of relative stability in the Trump foreign policy team. And
Rick, this is news to us, but the president says he's known for about 6 months. So is there any sense of who might succeed Nikki Haley?
I think there's all sorts of speculation you can put out there, up to including perhaps Ivanka Trump, who has talked about wanting to have that kind of a profile. I think we're going to have to see the dust settle a little bit before we can talk about other arrangements. I do think it was interesting that she ruled out a presidential run in 2020. People have talked about her as someone that could run for president, maybe even replace Mike Pence on the ticket if that was a decision that comes to it. Also, being from South Carolina raises a whole host of intriguing possibilities involving Senator Lindsey Graham, who's been talked about going over to become Attorney General.
Yeah, and
when
Rick,
the president seems certain on firing Jeff Sessions.
It looks like the ambassador is speaking right now. I just want to listen in for a second.
I want to say that it's not just the president I want to thank. The family in general. The First Lady has been nothing but very, very kind to me. I can't say enough good things about Jared and Ivanka. Jared is such a hidden genius that no one understands. I mean, to redo the NAFTA deal the way he did, what I've done working with him on the Middle East peace plan, it is so unbelievably well done. And Ivanka's been just a great friend, and they do a lot of things behind the scenes that I wish more people knew about, because we're a better country because they're in this administration. I also just have to say, certainly thank you to my family. Michael is a saint, and my 2 little ones, I adore them. And to Team USUN. You know, they sacrificed a lot. They put a lot of time and energy into it, but they have a lot of heart and really wanted to make America proud. And so with that, I'm not leaving until the end of the year. My goal is that we make sure that everything is in good place and for the next ambassador to come in. But it's a great day in the United States, and I'm proud to have been part of the team. Now, I don't have anything set on where I'm going to go. I think that the main thing was I was governor for 6 years, and we dealt with a hurricane, a 1,000-year flood, a church shooting, a school shooting. There was a lot. And then to come in and do 2 years of Russia and Iran and North Korea, it's been 8 years of intense time, and I'm a believer in term limits. I think you have to be selfless enough to know when you step aside and allow someone else to do the job. So thank you, Mr. President. It's been an honor of a lifetime. And I will say this, for all of you that are going to ask about 2020, no, I'm not running for 2020. I can promise you what I'll be doing is campaigning for this one. So I look forward to supporting the president in the next election.
That's so good. Thank you, Nikki.
Nikki Haley bidding farewell to her post come the end of the year and making it very clear she is not running in 2020, though Rick Klein in D.C., we have heard that from future candidates before. What's your final takeaway from this? What happens from here?
Well, this certainly rocks the foreign policy and the broader cabinet of President Trump at a critical time, at a time where they need to show stability with the elections only a month away with so many big balls in the air. I think if not for the timing, you could take this at face value, but I think there's a lot of intrigue concerning the fact that this came out of nowhere, again, just 4 weeks before the midterm elections. I think there'll be a lot more to learn in the days and hours to come.
All right. Rick Klein there from D.C., our political director. We appreciate it, Rick. Thanks. And now let's get right to Hurricane Michael. Taking aim at the Gulf Coast right now, Georgia, Florida, and Alabama are all under states of emergency. And Rob Marciano is in Panama City, where the storm is expected to make landfall right now as a Category 3 hurricane. Rob, what does it look like where you are right now?
It's beautiful. You can see the sun is out. You got a gentle breeze. The only indication that a storm may be coming is that these waves, my goodness, they are certainly kicking up. This part of the Gulf of Mexico, typically the waves aren't big at all, and this looks like something out of the Pacific or rough Atlantic. Beautiful white sand beaches here, crushed quartz like nothing else you've seen in the world, but you're not able to enjoy it. The beaches are closed. Double red flags are flying now for the beaches that closed to swimmers, and if you want to throw that up to hurricane flags, but they don't have those officially. This hotel, the workers, you can kind of see them. They've got their dollies out. They're taking not just anything that will fly away in the way of lawn, pool furniture, or maybe even stripping down this gazebo here. They're taking pots that are hundreds of pounds in weight and wheeling them away, because that's how strong these winds are going to be. They're going to be able to whip around just about anything. And there you see that pot right there. I went over there and tried to nudge it. It's tough, although that woman and that guy are probably a lot stronger than I am, so they'll be able to get it done. This building, by the way, is less than 2 years old. And it is built to code that could survive this hurricane, and it's up just high enough to where it should be able to resist the storm surge, which could be as high as 10 feet here. But not everywhere along Panama City Beach is as fortunate. And there are some low spots that are going to be washed out. We've got a Bay Area on the other side that has a potential for seeing storm surge. And they have not one, not two, but 3 evacuation zones here. They don't do that very often, which means areas well inland are evacuating today in anticipation of this. Gas lines have been long. Gas is running out. Some people having a hard time getting gas just to evacuate. We've talked to a couple of people that don't have the means to evacuate. They're hunkering down in some areas here. So it's a situation that's being taken very seriously. It's been an unusually warm September and October. I don't have to tell you that, Diane. It's been that way pretty much the eastern 2/3 of the country. That has kept the Gulf of Mexico very warm. So there is a lot of fuel for Hurricane Michael to take on, and we have seen it strengthen against the odds of sheer. And so Category 3 is the forecast, but Category 4 is certainly not out of the question. Those are frightening thoughts here for the folks who have endured so many hurricanes in the past. The last time they had a Cat 3 was Dennis back in 2005, and that did some serious damage, nearly over $3 billion worth of damage. The tourism industry, as you can imagine, is huge here. It's a $1 billion industry that has had to shut down this week because of this storm. And a lot of kids in the South have what's called a fall week off. So families have had to get up and get out of here at 6 a.m. today to heed the evacuation warning. So not a convenient time. They were hoping to get away with a lame hurricane season. They had a tropical storm Alberto that came through in June, made landfall just about 10 miles in that direction. But that came in with a whimper, so they thought, okay, we're cool. It's October, we're out of it. Well, no, here we go. October, these storms can flare up quickly. They do it close to shore, and they can accelerate quickly, which is what Michael is doing. So there has not been a whole lot of time to prepare, but I can tell you this, Diana, people have taken the warning seriously. They know there are hurricanes around here, and most of them at least are preparing and trying to get out quickly.
Well, Rob, sometimes, in areas where they know there are hurricanes, because they're so experienced, they feel like they're equipped to sort of tough it out. What are authorities saying to try to get residents to either take the preparation seriously or just get out?
Well, they're not going to go around knocking on doors and dragging people out of their homes. They have said that. If you are going to hunker down, as they like to say, you are on your own during the height of the storm. They're not going to send emergency crews out here and risk their safety. And then you're expected to have enough supplies to keep yourself and your dependent ones alive for a good couple of 3 days afterwards. So it's kind of every man for himself in that regard. When it comes to these evacuations, you got oil rigs that are out there, huge business as well. Oil rigs have been evacuated, shut down. In some cases, they take evasive maneuvers, and a couple of Air Force bases that are close by, they've taken their planes out of here as a precaution. So it's been. Storm surge, no doubt about that. The bathymetry bottom of the Gulf of Mexico in this area is very shallow. So it's very easy for the water to pile up when you have winds of 100 plus miles an hour pushing that water. And that's why this part of the Gulf of Mexico is so susceptible to storm surge. And we've seen it with storms throughout history, including Katrina, which hit, closer towards Gulfport. We had a huge storm surge over here. So that's what he's worried about. We're hoping that most of the worst storm surge will be around the Big Bend area, which is just to the east of us, east of Apalachicola. That's a very swampy area. It's less populated. That's where a lot of the big surge will be, and those swamps will be able to withhold that. But look, so many more people have moved to the coastline in the last 20 years, and there's just many more people and structures in harm's way to these surges that'll come in. So it won't come in quite as fast as a tsunami, but it will come in with some force and with some height, and in some cases up to 12 feet. So, we like to say you can hide from the wind, but you got to run from the water. So folks who are in low-lying areas need to get to higher ground and then protect yourselves from the wind, because we'll see hurricane force winds likely over 100 miles an hour well inland as this thing moves quickly after landfall tomorrow afternoon, Diane.
All right, good advice. Rob Marciano there from Panama City, Florida. Rob, thank you. And we heard Rob talking about Apalachicola, where the storm surge is expected to be extremely high. Our own Victor Kendo is actually there. And Victor, I understand they're expecting 12-foot surges in that area?
That's right, Diane. That would be life-threatening storm surge here. 12 feet of water means that all of this totally underwater. Just to give you an idea, 12 feet, more than twice my height. This whole gazebo, that would be underwater as well. And if you look up here, just past this car, up into that playground, that little neighborhood, those homes, downtown Apalachicola is just beyond that. All of that would be flooded as well. Let's work our way back down here to this marina, where you still see a good number of boats out here. Now, all morning long, we have seen a number of these boat owners making their last-minute preps and doing what they can. That urgent rush to get these boats out of this marina. They're taking them up the Apalachicola River, further inland, hopefully out of harm's way here. But as you can see, there's still a ton of boats here. And what they're doing right now, you've got some people just helping out their neighbors. They're bringing their power boats nearby and actually towing some of these sailboats out to where they can get, out to sea and into safety as well. I just want to point this one out. This is one of the last ones. You got those people over here making some preps as well as we move along this marina and this dock. That big boat right there, they're going to be moving it out of here as well. We felt some The winds are starting to pick up right now, some rain this morning as well, but we'll really start feeling those tropical storm force winds later on tonight. Diane?
And Victor, how are people preparing for the storm in terms of trying to protect their homes or getting out? Do they seem to be heeding these warnings?
You know, a good amount have. There was a mandatory evacuation in place for this county, Franklin County, at 8 a.m. The Emergency Operations Center also set up a number of buses to get people out of town throughout the morning. They're calling that a one-time opportunity to get out of town through those buses. But as always, covering these storms, you find people who say that they're going to try to ride it out. They always have their reasons and their excuses. Some of them better than others, I suppose, but for the most part, you know, you should always listen to those warnings. Those are mandatory evacuations for a reason, but they're, you know, for the most part, we have seen a lot of places, businesses especially, shutting down. Gas is in very short supply here, and you know, they're preparing, bracing for the worst here. Again, 12 feet of storm surge, absolutely devastating for this area.
12
Diane?
feet, unbelievable. All right, Victor Oquendo from Apalachicola, Florida. Victor, thanks. And now let's get over to Dan Peck for the latest weather forecast. Dan, any good news on this storm?
Well, unfortunately, Diane, it's not good news. It's kind of bad news, as the winds from the National Hurricane Center on the forecast track have now gone up prior to landfall. Let's get right to the latest track now. You can see here nearly a Category 3 storm. Right now, sustained winds 110 miles per hour. And as it heads towards the Florida panhandle, it still has about 24 hours to strengthen. So we're going to continue to see those winds increasing over the next 24 hours, and now 125 mile per hour sustained winds tomorrow morning. So we're running out of time to prepare. This is going to be a very strong storm.
And Dan, how is the speed of the storm itself looking? Does it seem to be moving quickly, or does it look like it's going to hover for a while?
Well, it's been picking up speed over the last couple of hours especially. We've been seeing it move slow yesterday. Now it's about 12 to 13 miles per hour, and that's going to continue to increase over the next 24 hours as well. And that does have a big impact on what we eventually see. Let's take a look at the satellite now, and you'll see that the storm is getting better and better organized, very symmetric. And one concern is that as we head throughout the next 24 hours, we'll start to see the impacts from Michael far from the center, and that's why we have such widespread watches and warnings, those hurricane warnings extending more than 300 miles across the northeastern Gulf Coast. So again, this is going to have widespread impacts, not just where landfall is, and that's one of our biggest concerns.
All right, Dan Peck from the Weather Center. Dan, we appreciate it. And now let's head over to upstate New York, where a criminal investigation is now underway in that horrific limo crash that killed 20 people. Officials now say that limo company failed recent inspections and the driver did not have the right license for the vehicle. David Curley is on the scene in Schoharie, New York. And David, how serious are these allegations against this limo company?
Well, there are violations that they did not meet some of the standards of the inspections that they had, and the governor was quite firm yesterday in which he said that the vehicle should not have been on the road because it had failed an inspection, and the driver should not have been driving it because he didn't have the right endorsement, the right kind of license to be driving the vehicle. When a vehicle carries more than 15 people, there's an endorsement that basically for driving buses, and according to the state, this driver did not have that, and there were 17 guests in that limousine, as well as the driver, and 18 total who were killed, and the 2 pedestrians that were hit. When the vehicle actually crossed the state highway behind me, you can actually see back there the investigators are still working at the scene of the accident. So all that is still underway. The autopsies are still going on as well. Some of the samples, toxicology samples from the driver, will be sent to a federal lab in Oklahoma for testing. So we have still no definitive idea of what caused the accident. What we do know, Diane, is that this vehicle, this extended 2001 Ford Excursion, was traveling at a high rate of speed because this was a high energy impact when it hit another vehicle and then landed in an embankment of a creek down there on the roadway behind us there.
I mean, just the level of death is hard to sort of comprehend. And then you look at the fact that multiple family members were affected in this. And then, as you mentioned yesterday, these are people who were trying to do the right thing. They were going out and they were hiring a designated driver so they wouldn't be drinking behind the wheel. How is the community taking all this in?
let me talk about the vehicle first and then to the community. State police have said that the group actually hired a vehicle, and for some reason that fell through. And then they hired this limousine that they were actually in, and that was their fix to get around. And as you say, and as family members have said, to do the right thing, to celebrate a 30th birthday of one of the 4 sisters and 3 husbands who were in the vehicle traveling to a brewery and other stops, trying to do it safely, and then this tragedy occurred. Last night in a small town here in this area, and this is fairly rural, we are a bit away from Schenectady and Albany, and 2,500 people gathered last night for a vigil, for prayers and thoughts, because these were all friends and family, the 17 of them in this vehicle. A lot of them were high school friends, now into their 30s, who had been friends for a long time and had decided to do this birthday party for the 30-year-old sister, the youngest of the 4 sisters who were in the vehicle. So a lot of remembrances last night of not only what one family lost here, but what this community lost as well.
And David, where does the investigation go from here?
So it's both the state police are investigating as well as NTSB. The NTSB chairman, who's been here since the beginning of this accident, has left. There are still NTSB investigators who will probably be working here for the next couple of days, and then the state police are running their concurrent investigation as well. They're sharing a lot of data. They're looking at the car, taking it apart. What was interesting is that they've told us that they have recovered the control module of the airbags in the vehicle, and they refer to that as a black box. If you were going to do that, it's a very crude black box because it's 2001 technology. But what it may have on it are the last couple of seconds or milliseconds of what was happening in the vehicle. Were the brakes ever applied? There are no skid marks that showed up on the roadway behind me here. If you can kind of see down there where that truck is turning left, the limo actually came out of there, crossed the highway this way, and then slammed into that parking lot and another vehicle. So they don't see any skid marks on the highway behind me, and so they're hoping that that control module may help answer some of the questions of what was going on in those final moments.
All right, and so many still left to be answered. David Curley there from Schoharie, New York. David, thank you. And that does it for us here at ABC News Live, but we do want to remind you we have The Big Vote premieres today. That's a midterm preview show this afternoon at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The midterms are just around the corner, and here's a quick way to educate yourself and get everything you need to know on those midterm elections. And remember, you can catch your headlines all day long at abcnews.com or at the ABC News app. For ABC News Live, I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.